Today, stand aside Richard Branson, it's Jeff Bezos' turn in the spotlight. The billionaire founder of Amazon blasted off into space this morning. Nike might soon run low on sneakers, according to a new report. What does that mean for American store shelves? And Bitcoin tumbles below $30,000 today for the first time in about a month. What's behind it? That and much more, coming up in Entity Business. Good evening and great to have you with us. I'm Paul Graney. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos is back from the edge of space. Just after 9 a.m. this morning, he took off with 3 other passengers. From the sounds of it, they had a real blast. Entity's Colin Fredrickson takes us there.
The newest international astronauts, the crew of New Shepard. Congratulations, all 4 of you.
Jeff Bezos blasted off into space Tuesday morning. The Amazon founder, his brother, and 2 other passengers boarded a Rivian that drove them to the West Texas launch site. There, they ascended the launch tower before entering the New Shepard crew capsule, and then...
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Command engine start. 2, 1. Ignition. We have liftoff. New Shepard's cleared the tower.
And New Shepard has cleared the tower on our way to space with our first human crew.
The flight was a little over 10 minutes. 10 minutes of pure joy for the 4 passengers.
Maximum altitude, and you hear they're having quite an experience.
At an altitude of about 47 miles, the capsule detached from the rocket and returned to Earth.
Our booster is about to return to its landing pad. There we see engine relights. The sonic boom.
After a few minutes of zero gravity and a spectacular view, the 4 astronauts began their descent. Parachutes shot out from the pilotless capsule as they fell.
Basically, everything's automated. It's like a drone, and the only people on board are the passengers themselves.
Space expert Brandon Weichert, author of Winning Space, says it's more cost-effective not to have a pilot. He says training and paying for them can be quite expensive.
So in the long run, this could potentially reduce the costs on Blue Origins as they seek to scale their operations up. Right now, it's sort of reserved for the wealthy.
When responding to a status check after landing, Bezos replied,
Best day ever.
As the crew was exiting, they were greeted with cheers and hugs. During a post-flight press conference, Bezos had this to say.
On how it felt, oh my God! My expectations were high and they were dramatically exceeded.
Bezos says that the most profound part was looking at the Earth and its atmosphere. He was awestruck by the Earth's beauty and says it's changed him. And his biggest surprise?
The zero-G piece may have been one of the biggest surprises because it felt so normal. It felt so serene and peaceful in the floating.
This all comes after Richard Branson blasted off into space earlier this month with his company Virgin Galactic. Meanwhile, Elon Musk plans on taking 4 commercial passengers into space later this year. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
The launch of Blue Origin's rocket marks big news for one small town in Texas. As space exploration heats up, residents there are expecting more local tourism. NTD's Don Ma has more.
Space exploration has become a booming business. For one small town near aerospace company Blue Origin's rocket launch site, it means a new surge of local tourism. Once a desolate desert ranch, Van Horn sits neatly at the foot of the Guadalupe Mountains in far west Texas. With the sprawling spaceport of Blue Origin only some 25 miles away, residents are expecting more visitors keen to catch a glimpse of the company's rockets.
People are excited. We're excited. It's a big deal for a small community. It puts your community on the map.
Van Horn sprouted up in the late 1800s during the construction of the Texas and Pacific Railway. It's now mostly an overnight stop for travelers along the cross-country highway, Interstate 10. Big Bend National Park in the Guadalupe Mountains and Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico are both within easy reach of the town, making it an ideal pit stop for visitors. The town's mayor is hopeful for more frequent Blue Origin launches amid the company's growing success.
My vision is that they build some type of viewing site out near the Blue Origin launch site where people will be able to go, whether they sell tickets or however they do it, but make it be to where the public can come and see the launch, to where they'll come and stay in Van Horn and stay in our hotels, eat in our restaurants, stay an extra day, go see the things that we have around town.
As for Blue Origin's impact on the town, locals are voicing mixed reactions. While the company's employees have been working at the facility since about 2005, they've only begun to integrate into the community.
And a consortium backed by George Soros and Bill Gates has acquired a CCP virus testing company called MoLogic. The collaboration is part of the Global Access Health Initiative, which will invest at least $41 million in the project. The Soros Economic Development Fund said the buyout is an attempt to expand access to affordable medical technologies in developing countries. MoLogic's founder says the acquisition is part of his company's transition to a social enterprise. He says it's a natural step for the company focused on delivering affordable tests to underserved communities. Many of Soros' past funding efforts have focused on advancing progressive political and social goals. And Nike might soon run out of sneakers made in Vietnam, according to a new report. It's after two of Nike's factory suppliers shut down production there because of rising virus cases. Phil Zoe has the story.
A virus outbreak in Vietnam is hitting Nike shoe production. S&P Global Market Intelligence says Nike may be running out of sneakers there. Because of recent CCP virus cases, two of Nike's major suppliers in Vietnam had to shut down production. Just how important is Vietnam to Nike? Last year, factories in Vietnam produced half of all Nike-branded footwear. A Nike spokesperson told CNBC, "The health and safety of our teammates, as well as that of our suppliers, remains our top priority." Nike's CFO said he expects supply chain disruptions and higher costs to continue into next year. That means whether you shop in stores or online, some sneakers may be limited or even out of stock in the coming months. Phil Zoe, NTD News.
Like many of its peers, Nordstrom is having a tough time keeping up with customer demand for new clothes because of supply issues. It'll be an even bigger challenge heading into the full swing of its anniversary sale. It's a traditional since the 1960s. Last year, customers stayed away because there was no reason to buy dressy clothes during a pandemic. NTD's Phil Zoe has the details.
Consumers are ready for a wardrobe refresh as restrictions ease and people go back to the office. That's according to the president of Nordstrom department stores.
And I think that there's a big demand out there for people to really go through their closets and kind of reinvent how they want to look over the next couple seasons.
Business is picking up according to the great-grandson of Nordstrom founder John W. Nordstrom. Starting in states that were the first to ease virus restrictions, Nordstrom was able to open stores in more and more locations.
I think customers, as they're getting out, they want to see their friends and they want to go have a cool experience. Our restaurants are really starting to do a lot more business.
The Seattle-based company plans to move masks off the retail floor as they shift their focus to their customers' changing shopping habits.
We are scrambling to get after what the new suit is. It may not be the same suit that it was.
Marina Gregorio, visiting from Brazil, admitted to shopping online during the lockdown.
But it's not the same as going in the store and checking if you really like it and checking if it really fits.
Another shopper also says you cannot replace the in-store shopping experience.
I like it very much that the stores reopen again and give us the opportunity to experience that again, because that's an experience. Shopping in a store is an experience.
Nordstrom's president says he thinks the casual clothing trend will continue, but shoppers still want to be stylish. Phil Zoe, NTD News.
Wall Street ended sharply higher today, bouncing back from a multi-day losing streak. All three major stock indexes gained more than 1%. The Dow leading the charge. It's up 550 points, 1.6%. S&P 500 gained 65 points today, 1.5%. The Nasdaq added 224 points, about 1.5% as well. Bitcoin, though, fell today to its lowest in almost a month, slumping below $30,000 as regulators continue calls for tighter checks on cryptocurrencies. Smaller cryptos such as Ether and XRP, which tend to move in tandem with Bitcoin, also lost ground today. Investors sold Bitcoin heavily in May and June, right after the Chinese regime cracked down on crypto mining and trading. Central bankers in the West have also recently called for tighter regulation. The Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said Monday the U.S. government must move quickly to establish a regulatory framework for stable coins. It's a rapidly growing class of digital currencies that are pegged to more stable assets like the U.S. dollar, gold. Bitcoin has fallen by more than half since hitting a peak of almost $65,000 in April. And U.S. home building activities rose more than expected in June, but the momentum is slowing. Permits for future construction dropped to an 8-month low, suggesting the housing shortage could be here for a while. Builders are likely held back by expensive building materials as well as shortages of labor and land. Though lumber prices are way down from record highs, builders are still paying more for steel, concrete, lighting. They're also grappling with shortages of appliances like refrigerators. One economist says some builders are delaying, even turning down orders to allow shortages to ease. And despite those rising commodity prices and the CPI showing over 5% inflation over the past year, Treasury yields still are not rising. The 10-year still returns less than 1.3%, so as at current levels of inflation, your real return could be negative 3.5%. Why would any investor do that? Actually, the chief economist at the Tressis Hedge Fund says it's not really investors doing it, but the Federal Reserve. It's buying the bonds to keep the yield artificially low, but it has to do quantitative easing, QE, aka print money to do that. That is inflationary. Ask Lakaye, how much is that driving up prices this year?
Yeah, more money created that is going to assets that are scarce, be it equities in which the companies are buying back stocks. That is a direct consequence. The massive buyback of stocks is a direct consequence of quantitative easing as well, of cheap money. Be it commodities, be it houses, be it scarce assets. It's basically more units of money chasing scarce assets, and that generates inflation. There is suddenly an abrupt correction, as we are seeing right now in commodities and in markets. But if we look at the overall asset price inflation that we have seen, not just in 2021, but 2020 and prior to that, obviously that is what's happening, no?
So is this what the QE hangover is going to look like? It's just going to be a collapse in these asset prices, or is there other harmful effects this QE we're going to have to deal with in the next number of years as well?
Well, the biggest risk of QE is that by having it prolonged year after year in periods of crisis and in periods of growth, is that the risk of a financial crisis is higher, and that the importance of that financial crisis is also very relevant, is much larger than expected. So, risk builds slowly. And right now, everybody, because we see markets going up, because we see the economy artificially sedated via debt and monetary policy, we think that nothing is happening. So risk continues to build. And we don't know exactly, because if not, we would be geniuses, but we don't know exactly where and how it's going to end. No, well, the same as what happened with the subprime crisis. No, everybody understood that prices of houses were going up too fast and too much, but very few thought when and how that would end. No, and when it ended, a lot of people thought, well, it's contained because it's only a certain percentage of the economy and the rest is fine, but it creates ripple effects. So the problem of quantitative easing is disguising risk. is disguising risk and giving the idea to investors and to citizens that there's absolutely no problem in governments entering into monster deficits that will lead the economy to run 100, 120, 200% of GDP debt, and things like that. So it's giving the idea that nothing bad.
Daniel Akaye, Tresses. And New York City's mayor says he won't impose indoor mask mandates again despite the rising rate of virus cases there. He says the city will opt for getting more New Yorkers vaccinated instead.
My question today is, due to the challenge with Delta variant, do you expect or do you support any executive order to enforce mandatory mask wearing indoors and outdoors in New York City?
No. Simple answer, no. Masks have value, unquestionably. But masks are not going at the root of the problem. Vaccination is. So we do not intend mask mandate. We do intend to double down on vaccination.
In nearby New Jersey, the governor is begging more residents to get vaccinated. He says virus variants are all over the state, and he warned that he could reimpose mask mandates and other safety measures. Yesterday, the Secretary of Health and Human Services signed a renewal of the U.S. public health emergency. The declaration needs renewal every 90 days to remain in effect. And just less than a day after the UK's reopening, dubbed Freedom Day, Prime Minister Boris Johnson says people will need to show they are fully vaccinated to enter nightclubs and other large venues with large crowds, starting from the end of September. That's when everyone over 18 will have had their chance to be fully vaccinated.
I don't want to have to close nightclubs again, as they have elsewhere. But it does mean nightclubs need to do the socially responsible thing and make use of the NHS COVID pass, which shows proof of vaccination, a recent negative test, or natural immunity as a means of entry.
Right now, it's only a recommendation that nightclubs ask for vaccine proof or negative test results. But Johnson says the government has the right to mandate certification, and it's to reduce transmission at a time when CCP virus cases are rising because of the new Delta variant. About 35% of 18 to 30-year-olds in the UK have not had their first shot. And the economic freedom of a province or American state like California or Texas declines when its population exceeds 9.5 million people, often resulting in higher government spending, higher taxes, and less flexible labor markets, according to a new study. As the study's author, Russell Sobel, senior fellow at the Fraser Institute, if it's just because a larger number of people is just harder for a government to handle.
Well, I think the best way of looking at it is that for any given private firm, like a Ford Motor Company, there's an optimal size factory. You can either be too small or too big. And it's the same thing when it comes to states and provinces as well. If you're too small, advantage of what us economists call economies of scale. While on the other hand, when you get too big, your jurisdiction just gets too big to manage. And really, it's both public finance factors as well as the functioning of your political institutions in democracy. And what it turns out is that around 9.5 million people is where that maximum happens. Beyond that point, economic policies tend to suffer. So really the big conclusion is that states and provinces that are very large, places like California, for example, are maybe getting too big to really have effective economic policies that are most conducive to growth.
Is there any recommendations from a public policy perspective how to help this, or?
Well, there's two things. The funny thing about the state of California, even though I don't live there, is that there have been ongoing pretty serious efforts to split it into multiple states now for a couple of years. So, there's these ongoing debates about whether we should take these really large states and split them up into a couple smaller states or those kinds of things where I think this is a relevant policy debate. But I think it also really has to do with answering the question of why some places are so much more economically successful than others. I think the answer is that some places just get really to be too big to be effective state and local governments for helping to promote the things that citizens really need.
You mentioned California. We also see with New York this year and over previous years, a lot of people are actually leaving these states, voting with their feet, as one of our other guests put it, to places like Florida or Texas or elsewhere. Is there some correlation in the data here, do you feel?
Yeah, very heavily correlated. There's a huge correlation between in and out migration and the quality of your economy and your economic policy. So, that's something we know for sure. I think the bigger question is, why do some places have so much better policies than others? I mean, there's places like West Virginia, for example, that don't have very good economic policies, and then, other states like, Texas that have much better ones. What explains these differences? I think it's just, and nobody had really looked at the effect of both geographic size and population before. And while I talked about population, it also turns out to be the case that geographic size matters too. You end up with some of these states like Alaska, for example, that are giant in terms of their pure sheer size. And those things have significant effects as well.
What are some of the most significant manifestations of this in the extreme examples?
High taxes as a share of the economy is one of them. It's really looking at, if you look at taxes and spending as a share of the economy, where is government most efficient? And it's kind of like looking at a firm's per unit cost. Walmart has lower cost per unit than a small convenience store because it gets bigger. But at some point, those get exhausted and you can get too big. And so governments, there's some size where governments are the most effective. And to kind of put my study into perspective, I found about 9.5 million people is about the optimal size. Beyond that, things go downhill. There are some previous papers looking at the optimal size of cities, and those are pretty much in agreement that the optimal city size is around 3 million. So I think it's interesting to view that in perspective. Mine would suggest that probably the optimal state for economic growth is a state with 3 cities of about 3 million people.
Russell Sobel, the Fraser Institute. And still to come this evening, astronauts in the International Space Station growing a popular spice used in Mexican food. Why might they prefer spicy food in space? That and more after this short break.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Welcome back. If you take Chantix to help you quit smoking, you better listen up. Pfizer is recalling some Chantix batches after high levels of possible cancer-causing chemicals were found in them. The company says there's no immediate danger to anyone taking it now. It's only a problem if someone's exposed to it over a long period of time, and the health benefits of stopping smoking outweigh the potential cancer risk. The FDA recommends patients keep taking Chantix until their pharmacist provides a replacement or their doctor prescribes something else. And a preteen biz-whiz is taking a city in the Midwest by storm, and local business owners are taking notice. Take a look.
This 11-year-old Kansas kid is turning bespoke beverages into big business.
It belongs to Nelson, and we got the flavor.
Nelson McConnell's unique flavorades have been quenching Kansas City thirsts since he took his special family recipes public in 2018.
It's from my great-grandma and my grandma and my mom. I'm like fourth-generation mixologist.
And business is booming, so much so that Nelson just became the youngest member of the Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce, whose leaders say his accomplishments send young entrepreneurs everywhere an important message.
No matter your age, no matter any of those barriers that are in front of you, that you can break through them and you can do what you want to do.
It seems NASA astronauts at the International Space Station are just like the rest of us who've discovered our green thumbs during the pandemic. The astronauts are currently growing red and green chili peppers in space. NASA said growing the peppers is, quote, one of the longest and most challenging plant experiments attempted aboard the orbital lab. The astronaut who helped grow red romaine lettuce in space in 2016 planted the 48 seeds in a growing facility. Then a team with the Kennedy Space Center put those seeds in a device called a science carrier. The peppers should be ready for harvest in about 3.5 months. If you're wondering why they chose peppers, a NASA official says crew members may prefer spicy or seasoned foods because they can temporarily lose their sense of taste or smell in orbit. In other news, one businesswoman in Jordan is putting a special traditional ingredient in her skincare products, and it's seeing pretty high demand. It's probably not what you'd expect, though. NTD's Pauline Richards has the details.
Drinking camel milk is common in Jordan, but making soap out of it is not. That is until Laura Al-Titi came along.
I am the first person to make products from camel milk in Jordan. It was not an easy task. There is a lack of similar products, mainly because it is difficult to obtain camel milk.
The mother of 3 tours camel farms in surrounding areas to get the milk. She first started planning the project in 2009, and since then her business has grown.
I gradually developed the idea and expanded it from a home business to striking deals with factories to produce for me.
But she says she still continues to make soap herself in her own workshop as well. Titi started her soap line at home using the manual process, but producing soap by yourself can be dangerous.
Soap is sensitive because there are some dangers with breathing it in or getting it on skin. So whoever joins this field has to know how to protect themselves as well.
She says her workshop places high importance on the materials that go into the soap. So she selected camel milk as a key ingredient because of its rich benefits. And her customers value the quality.
I am sure it is 100% natural and I really need it. For us as girls, it is very important to use natural things that do not affect us after removing our makeup and masks.
TT produces around 4,000 soap bars a month, which she sells locally and to other countries. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
As the latest business updates for today, you can still catch NTD Evening News with Stephanie Cox. That's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.